Hey everyone, why you may want to file your 2020 tax return right away, or why you may want to wait as close to April 15th as you possibly can before you submit your 2020 tax return. That's the topic, so let's get into it. But hey everybody, my name is Matt. I am all about strategy and capturing as much money as you possibly can. With that being said, let's get into this, but full disclaimer, first things first. I am not giving tax advice, accounting, financial, legal, or professional advice. I don't know your exact situation, but rather these are general statements. I would highly recommend you talk to somebody that understands your specific situation. I want to help you out, and I think this will be beneficial to a lot of people. Also, if you're somebody who typically doesn't file a tax return because maybe you receive Social Security, retirement, disability, or survivors, SSI, VA, RRB, or maybe you're low income and you typically don't file a tax return, I have a special message for you really quick. And that is, if you received both of your stimulus checks in 2020, the $1,200 and the $600, you're probably good to go. You probably don't need to file a tax return. However, if you did not receive the stimulus checks in 2020, you probably want to keep watching. All right, with that being said, let's get into this. There are some strategies and some reasons why you may want to file right away or why you might want to hold off until as close to April 15th as possible. Also, side note, I'll have a little pro tip at the end of this video. It's not really a pro tip, but I mean, it's kind of a cool thing that a lot of people forget. It's an extra deduction for this year that many people overlook. All right, so first things first. If you fall into any of the following categories that I'm going to list here in just a second, you may want to file your tax return as soon as possible. All right, number one, if your income remained the same in 2020 versus 2019, you might want to file right away. Number two, if your income declined in 2020 versus 2019, again, you might want to file right away. Number three, if you have a new dependent as of 2020 versus 2019, in other words, you had a baby, congratulations, you might want to file your tax return right away. And number four, if you were previously claimed as an adult dependent in 2019 or 2018, whatever tax return was last filed, if you were claimed as an adult dependent and you're not going to be claimed as an adult dependent in 2020, you might want to file right away. Another thing also, what was the stimulus check? The stimulus checks in 2020, what were those? Those were based on, the eligibility for those were based on the last filed tax return. So the IRS went off of the 2019 tax return to determine your eligibility. If you didn't have a 2019 tax return filed, they went off of the 2018 tax return to determine your eligibility. That's why this is important. There is strategy behind all of this. So if you fall into any of those categories that I just listed, you might want to file right away. The reason for that is make sure that you're claiming the recovery rebate credit on your tax return if you did not get the stimulus checks in 2020, either for yourself, maybe a spouse, or if you're one of those who had a new dependent in 2020, again, congratulations, but you might want to file and grab the stimulus checks on the behalf of your new baby. Yeah, right? So you want to grab that money right away. For those of you who are adult dependents, if you are not being claimed in 2020, you might want to file a tax return right away so that you can claim the $1,800 worth of stimulus checks that you missed out on in 2020. Again, this video is probably going to be worth thousands upon thousands of dollars for a lot of people out there. So it's good stuff. All right, so let's talk quickly about those of you who should wait as close to April 15th as you possibly can. Again, I'm not giving you advice. These are general statements. If you fall into any of the following categories that I'm going to list here in just a second, you might want to wait as close to April 15th as you possibly can before you file your tax return. And that is, if your income increased in 2020 over 2019, you probably want to wait as close to April 15th. Here are some of the thresholds you want to look out for. If you're an individual and your income was under $75,000 in 2019, but for some reason in 2020, you did a great job and you earned $102,000, first off, congratulations. But second off, you definitely want to wait until as close to April 15th as you possibly can. But again, make sure it's in before April 15th. That's very important. So the reason for that is because of the stimulus checks. I'll tell you here in just a second why this is important. If you're a couple, for maybe yourself and your spouse, let's just say, for example, in 2019, you earned $120,000. Again, congratulations, that's a nice income. Let's just say, for example, in 2020, you earned $210,000. You definitely want to wait as close to April 15th as you possibly can to file your tax return. Again, it all comes back to the stimulus checks. Now, you might be wondering and thinking, well, I got my 2 stimulus checks in 2020. Why would I want to wait? Here's why. Because as of right now, Congress is in the process of working incredibly slow to pass the next stimulus package. Within it, there's $1,400 stimulus checks for everybody. Well, here's the deal. There are some cliffs when it comes to the eligibility requirements for stimulus checks. For individuals, it's $100,000. If you earn a penny over $100,000, you get $0. So my point is, let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're an individual and you earned $67,000 in 2019, and in 2020, you earned $102,000. Let's say you submit your tax return right now. Well, they'd look at your $102,000 and say, sweet, good job, but sorry, you're not getting anything as far as the stimulus check goes. So that's why you want to wait. Because here's what's really cool about it, is if you wait until close to April 15th and this stimulus package is passed before then and they start distributing the stimulus checks based on the last tax return that the IRS has on file, which would be 2019. Remember, they're going off the most recent tax return that they have on file to determine your eligibility for the next stimulus check. So here's the deal. They look at your 2019 tax return and they say, oh, yes, you're under the limit. We'll send you $1,400. They hit your bank account with $1,400, and then you submit your tax return a week after that and say, hey, check it out. I actually earned $102,000. Guess what? You don't need to pay the $1,400 back. You get to keep it. They will not get it back from you. That's what's really cool about this. That is why there is a strategy behind this. If you submit your tax return too early and you earned over the threshold, they'll just say, sorry, tough luck, buddy, but you're not getting the $1,400. Whereas if you wait, you can potentially get that money and then you don't need to pay it back. The same thing goes for couples and those of you who have dependents. So let me give you one more example. Let's say you're an individual. In 2019, you earned $67,000, and in 2020, let's say you had a baby, and now you have a dependent, but you also earned $102,000. Again, congratulations on the baby and your increased income. It's like a double whammy, right? Best of both worlds. You got both. But here's the deal. If you happen to submit your tax return early, they would look at it and say, cool, congratulations on the earnings and congratulations on the baby, but you don't get a stimulus check for yourself or your dependent. But if you wait and they look at your 2019 tax return and they say, cool, you're eligible for your stimulus check, they'll send one for you, but again, they don't know about your baby yet. But either way, you still got the $1,400 that you don't need to pay back. So that's what's really cool about this. That's why you need to strategize, because if they pay you the stimulus check based on your 2019 tax return, you do not need to pay that back. However, there is a caveat to that. If they happen to pay you a stimulus check based on somebody who has passed away, you do need to pay that back, right? So it's kind of like a double standard a little bit. All right, so I hope all that makes sense. All right, here's your pro tip. Pro tip, right? Well, I mean, like in quotes, like really pro tip. Anyway, your pro tip. So one of the things that they passed back in early 2020, along with the legislation with all these stimulus packages and all this business, is for individuals and for couples, you get to write off now up to $300 worth of donations in 2020. Typically, you can only write off donations if you itemize. Well, most people don't itemize. Most people take the standard deduction, just like Corey and me. We take the standard deduction and we make donations throughout the year. Well, we typically don't get to write off those donations, except for in 2020, you get to write off $300 per individual or as an individual, and up to $600 as a couple. So I'm really excited about that because finally, Corey and I get to write off some of the donations that we make throughout the year, and we take the standard deduction. So remember that when you file your tax return or you prepare your taxes or you take all your paperwork to your accountant or whoever prepares them, if you made any donations in 2020, you get to write off up to $300 as an individual or $600 as a couple. But remember, too, you got to be honest. You got to be legal about all this stuff. I would never endorse anything illegal. You have to be completely honest. You need to produce receipts. So just be totally honest. You got to be honest with this stuff. Not saying that you're not. I'm just reiterating. Some people like to say, oh, I made donations, and then you really didn't. You got to be careful with that stuff. Just seriously, please be careful. You always got to be honest with this stuff when you file your tax return. Very, very important. Anyway, I hope this helps you out. There are strategies. I love looking at all the strategies, and you just got to, the game is to be played. You got to play the game. Everybody's doing it. It's completely legal. I would never do anything illegal. You got to play the game. You got to know how to play the game, and you got to know the strategies to win the game. That's why I'm here. I love this kind of stuff. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button right down below the video. And sorry, I almost choked myself there. That was awkward. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for your support. I'll catch you in the next one. I hope this helps you out. Grab the money that you have available to you. Thanks again, everybody. I'll see you later.